See, now we can't do it again, though. That's the problem. That was perfect. The Epos did everything off the mic. That was going to be just the best intro ever. So, yeah, man, I wanted to talk with you weeks ago about the free-to-play thing where it was leaked and then 343 said, yep, Infinite's free-to-play, and we were getting ready to do this discussion. And lo and behold, there's more news to talk about that just came out when people are watching this, probably yesterday, that Halo Infinite is delayed. So I want to talk to you about that today. First of all, what's kind of the initial impressions? We will talk about the free-to-play stuff. By the way, everybody, Epos Fox, tech YouTuber extraordinaire. I didn't go out of the way to introduce you. A lot of players probably know you from your tech YouTube channel or the streaming stuff, but you used to be very, very involved with Halo, competed at it, uploaded videos, huge part of your upbringing. So anything you want to add there before we hop in?
Nope, that's it.
Beautiful.
If you don't know who I am, you don't deserve to.
So Halo Infinite tweeted, or excuse me, the Halo account tweeted today about Halo Infinite. Today, I want to share, this is from Chris Lee, the studio head. Today, I want to share an important Halo Infinite development update with the community. We have made the difficult decision to shift our release to 2021 to ensure the team has adequate time to deliver a Halo game experience that meets our vision. The decision to shift our release is the result of multiple factors that have contributed to development challenges, including the ongoing COVID-related impacts affecting us all this year. I want to acknowledge the hard work from our team at 343 Industries, who have remained committed to making a great game and finding solutions to development challenges. However, it is not sustainable for the well-being of our team or the overall success of the game to ship it this holiday. We know this will be disappointing to many of you, and we all share in that sentiment. The passion and support the community has shown over the years has been incredible and inspiring. We wanted nothing more than to play our game with the community this holiday. The extra time will let us finish the critical work necessary to deliver the most ambitious Halo game ever at the quality we know our fans expect. Thank you for your support and understanding. So that just came out today. I don't think it's a huge surprise to people from just the overall feeling of what's been going on, right? How late we're seeing the first bits of gameplay, them talking about there probably won't be public flights for this thing. It's going to be tough, for us to do, a way to get you guys your hands on it. But I am absolutely shocked in the sense that this is their hardware seller. So what do you think of this, Epos?
Well, first and foremost, I mean, you could, in other words, just say, they're finishing this fight.
Boo. Boo.
But for real, what I find interesting about it is that virtually, like, almost every sentence in that post has something to unpack, which is pretty crazy. Like, it says a lot about the state of the game, about what they had hoped to do with it come the Xbox launch, and also IMO, the state of, like, game release cycles in the modern era in the first place, because jump back 10 years where we had leaked entire builds of games 8 months before launch, being this close to launch and needing to delay, like, for COVID to have delayed the game meant that they were so far, behind in the first place. And obviously there were a lot of specific factors that went into it with Halo, but we see that time and time again with every game these days. Like, it seems like every game is crunching for that last minute release, whereas used to, while there was crunch for sure, they had them ready like well ahead of time.
Yeah, before we shift there, the spot about the sentences having so much to unpack. First of all, you hear right initially, including the ongoing COVID-related impacts affecting us all this year. So it's safe to assume remote work is a huge challenge for game development. It's been a huge challenge for my normal job, and I cannot imagine the security challenges involved with working off-site on digital intellectual property like this, right? Could you imagine how tough that would be to compile or to even have, like, it must have been a huge disruption, and that happened back in March, right? April-ish.
Right.
So losing a handful of months work, if that's the case, even still, if the game were to come out when they say holiday 2020, I think November, but like maybe December, right?
Mm-hmm.
That still, like you said, doesn't give them a huge runway to test, right?
And that's ultimately how kind of my response to that unfolded, because literally when I first saw it, I was just like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Then I was like, wait a minute. Whoa. Because this was supposed to be, as it usually is, the Xbox launch title. And of course you have people from, the PlayStation 5 camp coming out of the woodwork to be like, haha, PlayStation 5 will win this year. But really, I think that means that everyone who's a fan of Halo wins, because
Yes.
as we can surely get into and discuss, like, what we saw was not what we wanted to release. Like, if we were given that game, we might be kind of like, guys?
Yeah, and it's interesting because we've just seen the campaign gameplay reveal, and the only time I've really talked about it on the channel was the reveal trailer, and I mainly harped on the visuals, right?
Right.
I'm pretty happy, actually, with the balance of the movement tech that was shown. I'm pretty happy with the sandbox stuff that was shown, but I think the biggest takeaway people have from that is the visuals. I mean, even the Domino's Twitter was sort of dunking and poking fun and memeing on Infinite a little bit. I really like the sentence here, though, that says, it's not sustainable for the well-being of our team or the overall success of the game to ship this holiday. I.e., I'm not going to crunch to death my team in order to make this happen. It's not sustainable, right? And I think that is a very positive thing to see, whether it was Doom Eternal's delay or Cyberpunk's delay. I'm trying to think of FPS stuff, right? Where we're seeing this trend continue. I like this so much more than the previous era we're coming out of, which is we will finish it over the course of 6 patches post-launch. You know what I mean?
Right. Which Halo itself has had a massive, not necessarily the patches, but the literally finishing it as we hand the disc out the door. That's literally been like every Halo release's story is, I mailed this off at midnight on FedEx and it just barely got there in time. And so I appreciate this as well if it does actually mean that the team's being taken care of and it's not just saying that, I guess.
Yeah, like 5 didn't have BTB at launch, right? Didn't
Right.
have
And
file
that
share, didn't have infection, I don't think.
I'm pretty sure we talked about this at some point in a video. Like, that was my biggest gripe with Halo 5. Like, with all of my disagreements with how it played, how it looked, which is ironic given this game, or, you know, everything having to do with Halo 5. Like, I had a lot of disagreements with it as a game, but ultimately, what really bothered me was it launched with, like, 2 features that you'd expect from a Halo title, and then they added them in over time. And to me, that was like, no, that was not cool. And that was one of the major lessons they were supposed to have learned from Halo 5 moving on to Halo Infinite, that they acted like they really took to heart. And so the idea that we could have been back in that same situation where they mentioned an entire separate lighting engine was going to be added post-launch, where it was just kind of like, I know it looks like crap now, but it'll look great come February or something, that didn't feel right. So being able to deliver what we want up front, IMO, is much more important than delivering early.
Yeah. Hearing ray tracing is coming post-launch, don't worry. Well, that's like your lighting engine, right? Like, it's, yeah. I feel for you guys, but like that is one of those key things that have me sort of nervous, right? And we haven't seen multiplayer gameplay just yet. Right. Hopefully this delay, just don't want to frame it. I'm very excited to hear about this delay because hopefully it means they can do some flighting stuff with Infinite before it comes out, because you and I have participated in a bunch of the MCC flights, and I know a lot of the viewers have too. I think that is a very good participatory way to get people's feedback, test things out, and avoid catastrophic launches like the 2014 MCC launch. So overall, I'm very happy about this delay, but I mean, have you ever, from your tech experience, seen anything like this where a console hardware launch isn't having its flagship at launch? To me, it feels like if, you know, the Switch didn't have Super Mario Odyssey, right? Or
right.
something like that. You know, as excited as I am about Xbox's direction, I think Game Pass is incredible. It offers so much value to people. There's not a whole lot of Series X titles that we've seen so far that make me go, I've got to buy the box. I want to have it on that thing.
I'm going to make a bold claim here. And I'm going to say that they were only able to pull off a delay because of Xbox's refined stance on how they like market their quote unquote products. Because we've talked on and off for the past like 3 years now about Microsoft's shift to Xbox being a service versus a piece of plastic, and their focus on getting you games on any platform, even hints of Wii or Switch stuff at some point, which haven't actually happened. But, you know, apparently talks did happen about it. About their focus on Game Pass and just the games themselves versus the actual hardware. I think without Microsoft being like, we're okay to sacrifice hardware sales in the name of building this bigger gaming empire, I don't think 343 would have been able to delay the game. And I really think it's that refined like focus that Microsoft was able to be like, you know what? We're going to take a hit come November. There's going to be less Halo-driven Xbox sales on Christmas, but that's fine. Like, if anything, that might improve the sustainability of it, because instead of just the Christmas holiday season bump, it's that plus January, February, whenever they come out with it. You know, there's like that extended tail of it once Halo does come out. But I'm going to say that it's only this new Xbox that we've seen the past couple years that would have let this happen. Had it been Xbox One's launch, they would have been like, no, you're putting the game out now.
Yeah, and it's you've talked about it before. They're getting rid of Xbox Live subscription cards, right? And it's basically all turning into theoretically Game Pass, right? It's all going to be baked into, you're either on Game Pass or you're not. And is the rumor that Xbox Live Gold is basically going to be a thing of the past, right? You talked about it on Streamer News a few weeks ago.
They have been they have come back to be like, okay, no, we're not getting rid of it yet. But yet they renamed all of their like terms of service just to refer to Xbox Online Services. And they've gotten rid of the 12-month gold card, and they've completely, I mean, they got rid of console exclusivity for their own platform this past generation. They said Xbox literally technically has no exclusives anymore because everything's going to launch on PC. They just want to be basically a giant mega publisher of sorts, which is fascinating, on top of the fact that it's seemingly been really successful for them. I think you brought up some massive questions about how is this sustainable, but clearly it's working in their favor for them to keep pushing it so hard. And so I really think that they might even save whatever big Game Pass change they have for Halo's launch still, and just roll with the hardware and be like, here's what our hardware can do with the games we have. Infinite will be out in a couple months, and then you'll really see, whatever.
Yeah, and it begs even more questions, right? Because we know multiplayer is free to play.
Right.
They have confirmed that. And so what
Do you
world
need
are
live
we
anymore?
living in? Like, this doesn't, I don't understand it. If I was a teen or if I was back in college, man, Game Pass, the value that it offers blows my mind. I don't understand how these things can come to Game Pass day one and how it is profitable for them, right? If I had more time, I would have just gobbled this thing up. Or if I was a parent, right? $15 a month gives access to a huge library. It's really, really cool. But then you think about, go for it.
We've seen, and granted, I'm sure Gamefly is rolling over in their bed, but we've seen like what Netflix did for getting DVDs in the mail and then streaming. Like, this is the equivalent of that, and we haven't really had it. Like, there's been some attempts at this kind of thing, but to have them fully playable locally. I know they're really working on cloud services and all of that, but most of the options where you had this kind of thing, you didn't own the game, and you still don't, sort of, because it's mostly digital, but you get to download the game and play on your machine, not stream it from someone else's machine and deal with compression and stuff. Like, you get to actually play it, and that's just crazy.
It is. And how does that fit into Infinite then, right? That's the craziness that I have a hard time wrapping my brain around. Free-to-play multiplayer definitely seems to be the way of the now. I don't know if that's, it's most likely going to be the way of the future, but for FPS titles, are you going to have an Xbox, I can't say gold anymore, but like online services subscription in order to play it online? I don't think so. I think that would sort of defeat the purpose of free-to-play, right? So,
right. I think it will lead into Game Pass subscriptions, because previously it's just been games. Like, you had to have either just understood the value or cared about a specific game in the Game Pass catalog for this to make sense. Whereas now you get a game that theoretically you've heard of before, or you've played before, or you want to play. You get to play the multiplayer and see how freaking awesome it is. And then as they continue to release this supposedly ever-expanding campaign universe, when you want to get in on that action, then you gotta shell out for Game Pass.
Yeah, and I guess that makes sense. It's an entry point over. So let's actually talk about what I originally contacted you to talk about, which was the free-to-play style of Infinite. I was pretty shocked to hear this, but I think ultimately an incredibly huge positive for the series. A, because it's sort of the standard in the industry right now. Lower barrier of entry, so I think it's going to have some of the highest early numbers out of any Halo game ever. Hopefully it can sustain that. Hopefully it's a great experience. But it also brings with it maybe some negative connotations as well. As much as I love free-to-play games, it does emanate to me a lot of what you talked about earlier, where Halo 5 had sort of a piecemeal strategy where hey, it's going to be completed over the course of 6 updates over the next 6 months, and they're all themed and they're all events and all that jazz. But I think it gives them more leeway to build it over time, which, if you've watched the channel, you and I have talked about it before. Halo 3 is my golden standard. I want a great campaign. I want custom games. I want a nice set of hoppers and multiplayer maps to play on, Forge and Theater at launch. And when I hear free to play, I get a little bit nervous in that sense. What do you think?
Right. I'm very much in the same mind. I'm basically in two minds about it, because one's like very extreme, like skeptic and nervous, because both the free-to-play multiplayer, the implications of that you talked about, combined with how they described the campaign experience, sounding very similar to Destiny, and I don't want to be that guy, but it sounds similar when we have no other information to work with. That makes me really nervous, because that, as much as I loved Destiny 1, that's not what I want from Halo. That's not the experience.
Real quick, hammering in. By Destiny, you mean a live service ongoing thing.
An evolving world, a campaign that changes over time in some way. And I know they haven't said anything along the lines of living world, shared experience, any of that, but the idea that it continues to expand and evolve over time just makes me nervous as someone who misses out on a lot of that stuff and otherwise, likes having games be the same when I played them. When I go back and play Halo 3's campaign, they haven't removed half of the content because the file size got too big. I can still play it.
It is funny. That's another thing. Like, Destiny is like, literally, we're vaulting content so we can keep the size of this thing down. And I get it, streamline it, cool, but what a weird world where there's going to be like this WoW classic. There's going to be years later, we're like, I remember, I want it back.
Like, jump back to Halo 3 and think about what you would have thought the next 6 Halo games would be, and what, or Destiny slotting in for Halo there, and what possibilities we could have in the year 2020 for unlimited gameplay. And to then tell yourself, oh no, we actually start like closing parts of the game because we can't store them anymore. Your brain would just be like, what?
Yeah. But I bought the disc from GameStop. I've got my Mountain Dew, Epos. It is weird. So I think from the free-to-play sense, could be massive for this franchise.
It could be the biggest thing we have ever seen, because there have not been a single free-to-play access Halo game outside of what Halo Online was going to be on the market. And for a game that was at one point the biggest game in terms of like competitive multiplayer, and to be so beloved by so many, to have that kind of initial bump, and to be frankly fairly accessible, if we're talking more classic mechanics, which they seem to be looping back to, it's way more accessible than many modern super competitive shooters. It's one of those easy to get the hang of but super tough to master games. We could see a huge resurgence in Halo. Now, I don't know that I would possibly even dare speculate that it goes back to how popular it was or whatever, but if they adapt it right, given the context of free-to-play games right now, it could be huge. And granted, the one game I've put the most time into in the past 2 years has also been a free-to-play game, and that's been Apex. It's addicting as heck. It's a free-to-play shooter. It's not pay to win.
It's very good. Yeah, I've been playing Season 5. Sorry. I thought there was more to the compliments coming. So.
No, I just... like, as much as I am 100% in that camp of like, oh god, free-to-play, we're going to have so many microtransactions, we're going to have, even though they said something along the lines of not having it, like, there's going to be monetization, we're going to have weird dividing up of the players, we're going to have whatever. I can open up Origin and see I have like 450 hours into Apex, which isn't a lot for like super hardcore people, but for me, that's insane. My one caveat here is the whole drip feed content thing. If they have to do that to appease this new, everything's dependent on new content for Twitch meta of gaming, that could kill it.
It just depends on how that's handled. I mean, live service, as much as you enjoy Apex, and I like Apex as well, I think when it's weak, one of the weakest points it has is the limited time events. I think it really struggles in that area where some of its competitors succeed. Here's what I am most encouraged about with free-to-play. It requires the developer to ensure that the game is in a good enough state over a long period of time to sustain players. Okay, the pressure is on. It's not just you paid $60, we made our initial bump of money, we're getting ready to move on to the next project. From what they have said, Infinite is their focus for the foreseeable future. So it has to be an experience that the broader player base enjoys and puts activity into. You know, live service games are completely beholden to those silly engagement metrics. Like when I was reading the Activision Blizzard earnings calls every single quarter, that's the stuff that they rattle off to their investors all the time. Like, they have spent the most hours in this game since our last seasonal update of last bi-weekly annual Tuesdays play session. Okay, like they come up with all sorts of arbitrary metrics so that the investors hear people are playing this game and they're liking it. I like that pressure that is applied, but I'm also scared because I never thought that Mixer would just disappear overnight. Not that I'm saying that would happen. I'm talking about just company moves. I know there's a ton of super passionate people involved with Infinite, just as there were lots of passionate people involved with Mixer.
But everything's beholden to making money.
Right? And could we wake up one day, 2-3 years from now, where it's like,
shutting down Infinite servers forever?
The franchise is too big to do that, right? But you get what I'm saying. I hope that this is healthy pressure that makes sure it delivers. And that delay, I want to infer that it's them doing their first step of, we don't think we could deliver on launch, even in a free-to-play experience, like the expectations that we have. So we're going to wait. You know what I mean?
I am so hopeful with like every fiber of my being that they actually, and apparently enough to get Microsoft on board, because obviously Microsoft and Big Papa Xbox had to approve all of this too. Like, they sat down, had a real conversation, and said, we need to deliver a certain level of all of this on all fronts: multiplayer, the creative side, single player, and visually. And we are not there, and we are not going to be able to be there, because what I'm hoping here, because a trend that we see, and we even saw this with Destiny, which wasn't a free-to-play game, is that games promise up front that they're going to be this next big thing. Like, Destiny was supposed to be the next 10 years of gaming, and somehow we've already ended up almost 10 years past Destiny, and that's pretty crazy, but that's a different story. But when they come up front, say, like, an Anthem, and people get into it, and they're like, yeah, we're going to play this for... Wait, what is this? If you lose enough of that initial momentum, it's hard to, regardless of how much you battlefield for it and make it the best game ever, most players have already left. And so I think 343 and Microsoft/Xbox both realize that Halo, there's a phrase in tech called a Halo product, which is literally like your number one, like, best possible product that sells everything else. If your Halo game that is literally called Halo doesn't kind of exemplify what the brand is about, then they would be in much more trouble, I think, than missing some pre-orders because it's not there in November.
That's a very important thing. It's bigger than just a Halo game. In a lot of ways, it's the last giant first-party Xbox title. Right? Now, granted, they have some amazing games over the last few years. Okay, it's you and I have talked about this, where on Game Pass, you pick it up, there are some awesome things that are happening, but I still think most players see Master Chief as the Mario of the brand, right?
Right. And they already took one big hit between the flop of the marketing around the console for the Xbox One itself and the kind of not super great launch of Halo 5 and MCC. Like, the early years of Xbox One were not good, and I don't think the Xbox brand would survive that again. Like, yeah. I think they would seriously... I mean, frankly, they already did restructure it a lot. Like,
yeah.
I think a lot of this Play Anywhere and this shift in philosophies directly came as a result of how big of a flop it was in 2013 and 2014. And so I would be terrified to see what would happen come holiday and all of this happen again. So I really think that they have everything best in mind, and they just have some things to fix up. And you mentioned back at the beginning, and I really wanted to just mention this, the idea of them adding in an entire lighting engine, which was the entire selling point of next-gen graphics. Like, coming from PS4 Pro and Xbox One X over to Series X and PS5, there isn't major leaps in graphical fidelity. There's extra specs, and then we have ray tracing, which is like the big quote-unquote game changer. To launch a next-gen launch title that's supposed to sell your next-gen console without the whole feature that sells next-gen graphics, just looked bad to everyone. And so I really think that they were originally leveraging the idea that, hey, we can't finish this right now, but this is coming later, and saw the backlash. And I think even, there's probably tons of extra work that needs done on the game unrelated to graphics, but I think that was representative of the core problem of trying to rush it out the door. Like, even if most of the reason that they're delaying it has nothing to do with graphics, I think that was just kind of indicative of, like, we're not ready.
Yeah. I love when games delay and then deliver. It's ready when it's ready. And
right.
I'm very encouraged by this. I hope that it gives them enough time to create the experience that they really want. And I also hope, too, that they don't misinterpret the criticism of the visuals as a dislike of the style, because I really like that direction, minus the Mega Bloks looking.
The Heroscape hexagonal tile thing was a little weird.
But maybe it pops once there's like shadows and everything's not flat lit with this halo effect. Yeah. No pun intended, but like.
And we understand the canonical reason for that.
Yeah, it felt more akin to a Halo 3 style, which you and I, that's our Mount Everest title within the series, which is great. So please don't like totally translate that into.
We do want a more simplistic, almost cartoony, but not cartoony. Halo 3 colorful style. We just want there to be shadows and reflections and proper lighting, which, like, frankly, most of it looked great. Like, there were some minor nitpicky issues about popping and stuff, but most of it looked great. There's just, like, elements that are clearly just missing, like, outright missing. It's not a stylistic thing. It is their pipeline is not finished.
Yeah. I've been encouraged, too, and I will wrap it up right here. The other game I know that you've been playing a lot, other than Apex Legends, is Halo 3 on PC. Yes. You and I have been playing Halo 3 on PC a lot. I've had a ton of fun with it, and honestly, the evolution of how MCC has been going so far with the flights and just the sustained effort being put in, very positive, at least from the angle that I look at it from, in terms of what we can hopefully see from Infinite. Maybe the Infinite team is going to learn from some of the stuff that MCC has been seeing, but in the meantime, I'm pretty darn happy with Halo 3, and perhaps this gives us, sounds stupid, but like a little bit more time to enjoy MCC stuff. Maybe they can do more Halo 3 things. We know the next MCC season brings us actual new customization for Halo 3 stuff, which is just so cool. But what do you think about all that fitting into the grander picture of things? Because I know Halo 3 is your baby. That is your favorite Halo game.
Absolutely. And frankly, what I wanted in 2014 when I first, or earlier than that, when I first heard the pitch for MCC was basically, a pseudo remastering where I can play my favorite diehard Halo game for the next 10 or 15 years. And for me, MCC on Xbox has never quite been that. And now it is. It is completely what I had always wanted it to be. And the fact that they were able to do that they didn't give up on that, says a lot to me. But I was starting to get nervous to see how they were going to fit in customization for every game, plus ODST, plus Halo 4, before Infinite drops, because as much energy as they've been putting into MCC, I have worried that there would be a bit of a de-emphasis on it once Infinite came out, because they're like, okay, you had your MCC, come play Infinite, please. And if they didn't get all the games out and fixed before Infinite comes out, we may never get it. And so I'm also kind of hopeful that this means that MCC gets to get like fully finished and, kind of put a close on that weird saga, but finally give us what everyone wanted before Infinite comes out. Because that would just be like the best transition ever, to be like, we finally delivered on what we said we would do 6 years ago or not. It's here. Now you can buy our next game. And I will be front in line.
Yeah, I'd prefer 6 years with a great experience on day one of Infinite versus 5 years come November, December, and we go, well, here we go
they did it again.
Hey, thank you so much, Epos. I appreciate it. As always, this is really cool to talk about this stuff. I remember doing E3 3 years ago with you, just going, the direction is so different, and now we're seeing those results play out. And interesting stuff, man. I imagine from the tech side, having the Series X launch without Halo, this is significant. And
it's going to be fun. I'm going to start muting words on Twitter so I don't have to see the console war stuff, because I'm just not here for it. I'm an adult that doesn't want to argue with each other about pieces of plastic, but I am super interested to see how they launch without it.
Me too, man. So links for everybody will be in the description down below. Check out Epos. Thanks so much for watching. If you guys want to hear about those H3 customization options, I'll have a link on screen here, plus crossplay coming by the end of the year for MCC. So thanks, have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you again next time.
Bye.